What's up? How you doing? Here we are, Monday, beautiful day, little breeze going by, a couple of clouds here and there, but very nice, very comfortable out here. Waiting for the crows to fly by. They'll be by any moment. Starbucks. I was thinking when I was in the third grade, there was a little like a mini mart convenience store across the street, and just before school would start we would run over there and buy a few items like gum. And nowadays they have a leash on you. You can't go beyond the schoolyard, but back then we'd cross the street, busy street too, we'd run across and we'd get I remember Luden's cough drops, the cherry flavored ones. Those were a big item. And the way I discovered those, my friend, he would have the grandfather would drop him off and then hang around. He looked like a homeless man, but he would hang around, and I would say he was probably like maybe late 60s, the grandfather, but when you looked at him he looked like he was about 85. And he would bring him a box of Luden's cough drops. And one day he says, you want one? And I go, what is that? He goes, my grandfather brings these. They're cherry candy. So he gave me one, and I became a fan of those. Very good tasting, good flavor. But the big thing for us in those days to buy Mexican jumping beans. I don't know, we loved them. You'd have them in your pocket and you'd feel them jumping up and down in this plastic little container. And rabbit's feet, the keychain, they sold them in different colors, and we'd say, I can have that one, put your keys on them. That's gone now. Nobody gets that stuff. Plus it's a little bit politically incorrect to buy a rabbit's foot, so they don't sell them. At least I don't see them. But the Mexican jumping beans, I don't know what was in there, a worm, something, and they would vibrate. Every so often you'd lose them, you'd buy another one. They came in two, but two in a little plastic container. But the other thing, bubble yum gum. Yeah, one time in the third grade, I was down to my last piece, and the bell rang, so we got up to leave, and I put it in my mouth, but I was still in class. And the teacher, which I think of it today, and it still annoys me, the teacher saw me put it in, and I took a couple of chews, and she goes, take a piece of paper, wrap up your gum, and put it in the trash can. And I go, but I'm leaving. He's like, I don't care. So I took it out and I was really annoyed with that. Really annoyed. But yeah, we always made a pit stop at the convenience store across the street. Now they don't let you cross the street at that age. Now they have a leash, and you can only go as far as the fence. Can't go beyond that. Otherwise, you'll have a teacher running after you. Yeah, we all had a little bag of goodies. Bag of goodies. Make the day go faster. And then, in the 5th grade, I had detention one time. And one of the girls, I think she was a year older than me, had detention also. And she sat, that was my first detention. I didn't even know what to do. It was this old teacher, old lady. She had the class that day for detention, and I sat there. It was my first detention ever. And I was like, what am I doing here? And then she was one of the daughters of one of the office workers, secretary. So the old teacher, that teacher was old, was sitting there correcting tests. She was a 3rd grade teacher, and this girl wanted to put a Luden's cough drop in her mouth. So I see her putting it in here, and then she pretended to cough. She went and then she put it in her mouth. Oh, that's a good trick. So every time I see somebody coughing like that now, I think of her. Strange things that you associate with certain people. Yeah, nobody could chew gum in those days. What they should have done is they should have told kids, do not take that gum and put it underneath your desk. Take out a loose leaf piece of paper, take out the gum, and put it in there, and then wrap it up and throw it in the trash. That way you don't have kids sneaking around, putting it under the desk or under the chair. Because that's, you know, when it was illegal, contraband, right? Everybody would put it under the desk. If you flipped the desks over, you had gum under there from the 60s. Yep. A lot of cars going by. Remember Barney Miller? I loved watching Barney Miller. It was a comedy, but you know, I mean, what kind of cops were these? Cops from Sesame Street. But it was, you know, funny show. Fish was on it. Then he got his own series, and it was called Fish. Todd Bridges was on it. Used to watch that show all the time. Barney Miller with the bass. Boom, 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 boom. Love that song. They had a little jail cell. They put the bad guys in there, or bad guys. They weren't really that bad. But I used to watch that show a lot. Barney Miller. And then Hal Linden, in the 80s, I want to say 1983, he had a little show. It was about a minute long, and it was called FYI. And I think it came just before or after General Hospital. I think it was before General Hospital. And he always had something interesting. It was like the Supermans, when they had these little things in between commercials where Superman would come out and he would tell you, like, if you ever had a bee sting or if you ever burned your hand, what to do. Well, FYI was like that. Always interesting facts that you never knew before. Hal Linden. Still around, Hal. What's up? My daughter over there taking a walk. Yeah, every kid in my class, almost every kid, if you ask them, what are you gonna do when you grow up? Mechanic. Gonna be a mechanic. Nowadays, I think it's harder and easier to be a mechanic, because now you get that reader. You put it into a part of your car, and the scanner will tell you everything that's wrong with the car. You know, but in the old days, it was a lot easier. They had a carburetor. If you know, especially if you own a Volkswagen Beetle, those were very easy to work on. Now it's just like you take parts out, put parts in. You don't repair anything anymore. You just exchange. I had a Mazda 626, and I had access to a balancing machine for the tires. And when I had nothing to do, I would balance my tires like weekly. I wanted to keep the balance up to date. That car was like homemade. I made everything in there. The knobs for the radio I made with blades and plumber's tape wrapped around them, and I'd put them into the slot. Everything was like, you know, custom made by me in that car. I even fixed the gaskets, took everything apart, new gaskets. And I would get Amalie oil. That was like my favorite. Heavy duty Amalie. Go down to the auto parts store, grab the oil, open up the bottom lug nut, let it drain for couple of hours, make sure every drop was out of there. Couldn't have a drop in there from the old oil. And then I'd get a Fram filter, screw it in there hand tight, and then I'd pour the oil in, let each can sit for like 10 minutes, make sure every drop was in there. And Amelie, the oil I used had a little bit of a greenish tint to it. Made it look like good oil, so I would use that. And at the time, I know Mobil 1 is very expensive, but Amelie was very expensive too. I would use that. I didn't really use Mobil 1 synthetic. I don't know. I have used it since, but in those days I was an Amelie guy. Now I use Valvoline mostly, Pennzoil. You know, they're all the same, pretty much. Waiting for the birds. Remember that show, The A-Team, with Mr. T, George Papard? Like that show, because, you know, back then I was a van guy. I loved vans. We had a place down at the Cape, and it's like a bunch of these guys with their families would show up with vans, custom-made vans. I go, that's a cool thing to have your van driving around, and then you get tired, you pull off, go in the back, take a nap, and continue on. But anyway, the A-Team, you know, for the time it came out, it was a cool show. Now it's a little bit corny, but back then you had these guys, ex-military, like Steven Seagal always plays ex-military, and they would get these jobs. People would contact them somehow. Nobody knew how. They just would find them. And then B.A. Baracus was the kind of like the tough guy in the group. You had Murdoch, who belonged in the mental hospital. George Papard was the brains, and then the other guy, was he like the good-looking guy or something? Face. It was a good show. And Mr. T was very popular. The guy even had a cartoon series, you know, with the medallions. Yeah, anyway, that's it. Almost done with the coffee. Refreshing.